Welcome to your weekend, and this is your weekly wrap up presented by the Conversation Project. I am Jay Cleveland Payne, and I'm going to bring to you the simple wrap up of news stories we posted all week on the Conversation Project feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Call it X if you want to, and talked about at least most of these throughout the week in our video podcast we have every single weekday. We call that Things You Might Have Heard. What we gave to you in that podcast and that viewcast is the latest in the news and politics information from that previous day. Here, we're going to give you the straight talk from exactly what you wanted to talk about all week long. From 10 to 1, the top 10 stories based purely on your data, purely on your engagement. No real interference from me other than the fact that I'm going to kind of explain the stories and give you more details on them as well. For more details about what we do all week long, go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com for the full scale of what we have, including things you might have heard, all the weekend podcasts we have, and of course the interjections we have on TikTok and YouTube and things like that. Now, along with the stories that are in the top 10, a little perspective for what you thought about this week with the almost rans. Those are stories 11 through 15, obviously not quite in top 10 range. And we'll tell you about one story you cared little about for this week. We call that one the almost relevant story of the week. This week, that story listed as number 207. And this story is sort of a iffy one, and so we'll bring it up and then you can tell us in your comments what you think about that. Of course, your comments are always welcome. Email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. Tell us what we're doing well and what we can do a little better. Right now, let's get to the part that we do fairly well. Let's give you some news stories. We'll explain all the feeds and how that happens in a bit, and so stick for that one. But 10 stories to get to for this morning, so let's get into them right now. We're going to prepare for you that. Of course, this is for the week ending September 16th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us all week long. Here are the stories, the top 10 stories you engaged in this week. We start off with a heartbreaker, if you will. Now, Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher say they're aware of the pain their letters caused, and they sent this defending Danny Masterson. This one, we pulled the actual story from NBC News, but this was all over the place. As last week, Danny Masterson was sentenced to 30 years in prison for very, very bad things. However, a lot of people in the team surrounding that 70s show, and of course other folks that worked with him, were trying to do their best to support Danny Masterson in his stay. And it wasn't just so much the Scientology stuff. Many cast members from the 70s show, Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher specifically, were called out for writing letters in defense of Danny Masterson, saying he was a great guy, he did all these good things like that. Yet he was also convicted of the crimes that he was caused. Right now, a lot of heat went towards them. In fact, some updated news we'll probably see popping up within the next week or so, at least here as we conversate on it. We put it in the story for today to post as we're doing this on Saturday. Ashton Kutcher has been pulled off one of the charities that he and his wife were really supporting, one of the boards of those charities, because it's about child trafficking. And they are big into supporting groups that are fighting child trafficking and things like that. And Danny Masterson is basically accused of the things that child traffickers do. A lot of backlash on this one. Do you believe they should have got all the backlash that they got? Respond to us in our emails. Respond to us where you see this video or get this audio, and we can chat this up, because this is all about conversation and chatting things up together. The story at number 9 this week is a hopefully happy ending, as we have a lot of sad endings for weddings. Excuse me. Sorry about that. A little bit of throat thing going on there. A lot of happy, or sad endings for happy endings that should be for weddings happening these days for married people that are famous. Chris Evans is getting married, or has gotten married, to Alba Batista in an intimate at-home wedding, a very in-house thing for the ceremony that they said I do in basically a backyard weddings thing. Okay, Alba Batista is, of course, the star of Warrior Nun. We'll see if that comes back or not. And Chris Evans, one of the best Chris's around, of course, is, of course, Captain America and other things. Now, many people have been sort of weirded out by the relationship in general. Basically, everybody that showed up for this wedding had NDAs and phones confiscated, because you do that. But this is one of those things where we'll see as this happens. Now, on a week where we had a couple really big breakups, we have a big, more or less big celebration come together. We'll see if this one will last forever, or whatever forever lasts for these years. The story at number 8 reads with a headline like this one. NASA releases UFO report, says new science techniques needed to better understand them. So people have seen UFOs, or as NASA calls them, UAPs, for millennia. We've seen them in the sky and not known what they were. Back in the day, it took us a while to figure out that, oh, that's a comet. Oh, that's a weather balloon. Oh, those are planes because planes are new. Now that we are in the skies and in the space, we are still seeing things that are unexplainable. NASA said they've had some footage, they've had some details on things, but the problem was literally the science of the time. As you know, once upon a time, we thought the Earth was flat, or people thought the Earth was flat. Some people did, and now most of us don't. With the added technology, NASA has released their UFO report. Now, the problem was that report extremely lacking. So the government is still holding back on a lot of stuff. They're being more transparent in a way, but not in a way that's really doing anything. Mexico actually had a hearing this week. This government of Mexico had a hearing that supposedly had alien bodies. Now that's a little freaky on that end, but NASA, our government, the U.S.'s government, us's government, is out there trying to say things and not quite saying things well enough for people to understand. They're blaming technology. We're still blaming, trying to hide secrets. At number 7, here's an editorial that you really need to get into because it means a lot for how we interact as a people right now. Child poverty in the U.S. jumped and income declined in 2022 as coronavirus pandemic benefits ended. One of the things that actually saved us as people in the United States for coronavirus times when people were locked down and could not go out and do various things, including work or extra work in some cases, or basic work in a lot of cases, is benefits. The government stepped in, and started throwing out money, which turned into its own sort of ball of wax of issues. But what it did for most Americans who were living paycheck to paycheck and had a very basic income was it offered more money to people with children, basic money, the child income tax specifically, and healthcare benefits for people who were losing them because of lack of work. Because of the retirement of those benefits, there's not enough need for that because people can go out there and work right now. Many people are going back below the poverty line. Many people jumped above it just because they were getting extra money subsidized by the government, which, yes, it's subsidized by the government, but it's great for the overall benefits of everyone. It was, at least, until they were taken away. Now the poverty levels are going back down. Child poverty is increasing, I should say. Income's on decline because we're not getting the extra money, as one would expect. Read the article, read the reports, and go deeper into what's going on. Now, there are a lot of issues. It's a very complicated issue to the fact of what are we doing for work right now, and no one wants to work, because trust me, I understand that from a person looking for people to work for my stuff. There is a issue where we're not paying enough, and there's an issue where what you're paying for people should be enough, but people want more than they want, union stuff aside. There are issues with child poverty because people who aren't getting enough money for the kids becomes a very, very serious, very quick issue going forward. We literally could not ignore this one. We put it in there sort of as a space filler. We put stories out there every 50 minutes or so in the feeds to interact with. This one was such a big, huge thing for the Tuesday edition as it came through, as a late posting, if you will, that we had to talk about it. Not a lot to talk about, so we're going to keep it very lean, very quick, because we don't want to get those go through E-rating for these things. But the Redlands Unified School District in California had to pay $2.25 million to settle a lawsuit involving a teacher who got pregnant and had a baby from a student. Now, this is actually a multiple offender, because in 2021, another former student, actually sued Whitehurst, the lady herself, for abusing him at the Redlands High School. She admitted to having sex with that youth for about 10 to 15 times before. This is a lawsuit settled by the actual school district for doing the same thing in exact. She actually got pregnant and had the child going forward. This is the sort of thing that's going to disappear from the national headlines. The quick hit went there. It didn't catch on like it was, but Laura Whitehurst, the teacher there, will have to deal with this going forward. Now, the sort of, 8th grade dude in the back of your head remembers back in the day when all of a sudden these things became actual stories, and there's the sort of the dude talk like, wow, my teacher never was like that. But in reality is, this is serious child abuse that must be addressed. And it happens more often than we want to think. But fortunately, it's not major headlines every single day. When it does happen, should be headlines, should think about it, should have discussions, and then we should deal with it, because the most important thing is the young man who dealt with the issue and the child of the issue. Let's go to the story at number 5 for this week. Michigan State University football coach Mel Tucker suspended without pay amid investigation into reported accusation of sexual harassment. This is something that you will see a lot throughout the seasons as big-time sports guys do bad things. The problem is big-time sports guys will do bad things, and like we did in the last story, it needs to be addressed, needs to be brought up. It's not as overblown as it could be, but when it is, we have to pay attention. Michigan State University suspended head football coach Mel Tucker, of course, without pay. The investigation going through sexual harassment began back in December, so this has been a long time coming. The accuser had no intention of actually doing this publicly, but it just turned into something that was big. He became the football coach, that being Tucker, in 2020, and signed a massive deal, 10 years, $95 million. Team finished 5-7 last year, so is that money worth it? Maybe not, especially if he's doing bad things and being accused of sexual harassment, because the trouble that he's causing obviously not good enough for the not so good trouble he should be causing on the football field. Not to make light of that, but there are many folks who get away with bad things because they're doing good things for other folks, i.e. making money, winning games. I live in Arkansas, and so we had about a decade ago or so, the whole Bobby Petrino thing happened here in the state. If you don't remember that, go look that up. Pretty fun. Motorcycles and all sorts of stuff. In the meantime, football coaches need to be held accountable for just being regular people. Here's a case where we're probably going to see that. We shall see how the case actually comes down. The number 4 story that you had engagement was an interesting one. BP CEO Looney resigns over personal relations with colleagues. The CEO of BP, British Petroleum, resigned on Tuesday with immediate effect after failing to fully disclose details of past personal relationships with colleagues, i.e. he was dating some people working around the office. His resignation came after allegations of personal relationships with company colleagues surfaced. The board had investigated similar allegations back in 2022, not that far ago, and was given assurance by Looney regarding the future behavior. Guess what? Future behavior became current behavior, still behavior. He resigned because of that. Will that deal anything for the record profits that the gas companies have? Probably not, and will this actually be another case where another person actually has some sort of responsibility and things get better? Maybe not, but we will see on that one. I was surprised that this one actually pulled the weight that it did. Apparently it was such a big international story that you guys got into this one, so that's why this was there. But at number 4, the BP CEO, that being Bernard Looney, resigned over bad relationships, or I should say personal relationships that should not have been happening with colleagues at work. This one we knew was going to be a big deal because it was a big time showdown on Monday Night Football to open the season. The Aaron Rodgers era began and ended in essentially 4 snaps with an Achilles injury happening to Rodgers' first possession of the game. I came in late that night to turn on the game and kind of get to work on my stuff here, and looked on the field. The Jets had possession, and a number 2 was the quarterback, which is like, wait a minute, Rodgers is 4. 4 games in, he gets hit pretty big by Bills edge rushers Leonard Floyd, and was replaced by Zach Wilson for the game. Zach was actually able to pull the game off and doing some sticking with the things, and they won it in overtime in very, very, very phenomenal fashion. So great first win for the Jets for the season. Aaron Rodgers out for his first season. He's getting $75 million over 2 years guaranteed, so he's getting paid. Can we wait till next year for Aaron Rodgers to do great things? Or if we get really, really lucky, they make the playoffs and he comes in late. By that time, Zach Wilson, whoever they pull in to pull that weight, will probably be the leader for the year. Can Rodgers survive this? Or will the memes be true? Will Rodgers actually follow his previous mentor, Brett Favre, and next stop be Minnesota? Story at the number 2 spot this week. Hurricane Lee straightens to Category 5 storm as it approaches Caribbean. Now, this was a big deal as Lee was probably a 2, 3 for most of the time. Then it popped up to a 5 all of a sudden, and it was big, and it was stretching large, and it was affecting rain patterns. What happened with Lee so far is it kept on going. It didn't make a left turn, it made a right turn, and just kept on sputtering. But didn't make as hard of a right turn as they expected, so it is now currently moving up the eastern seaboard, not quite touching the Carolinas, but maybe being a threat to Canada, Nova Scotia, and the northeastern states up there as it approaches. It probably won't make landfall anytime soon. It probably will actually keep on moving towards the middle of the ocean, but it's going to be close enough that rain is expected for Canada coming in the next couple days and the high northeast. We shall see this play out if it comes to be another thing to actually play out. Looks like we definitely dodged a bullet with this one, as this one churned up very quickly to a 5 and stayed as a 5 for quite some time. There's still storm chasers are out there chasing it, keeping an eye on it to keep what's going on to make sure it does not get out of hand. But for right now, it's not much of a threat to the U.S. Northern parts of the U.S. and Canada, though, may still see some storm surge. Maybe it could turn. You never really know with these things. And you never really know what's going to happen until we get to the top. And here we are at the number one story for this week. Let's pull out the details for this one, the fanfare it deserves, like we say, because we want to make sure we celebrate it if you want to. The number one story on Twitter, or X, because of the speed of that one. Oh, by the way, the Redlands Unified School District story about the teacher who had the baby from the student. That was the number one Facebook story. That Facebook hit was what built this one into the actual top 10. Otherwise, it probably would not have made it into the Almost Rans. But that you love this one on Facebook, if you will. So maybe you hate it so much on Facebook, if you will. That's why it was there at the number 6 spot. But the number one spot, the top story on Twitter, so it got most of the love there. It got 31.26% of all engagement for the entire week. That's how many people engaged in story going forward. It is more responsive. More people were engaged in this one than the second story, Hurricane Lee, by 176%. And the story at number 207, the almost irrelevant story of the week, it is more engaging by, get this now, 1,082,900%. That's a lot. So no one really cared about the bottom story, but you cared a lot about the top story. What is the headline for this story? It reads like this. Escaped murderer Delano Cavalcante captured following intense manhunt. After about 14 days of being on the lam, Cavalcante has been captured kind of in dramatic fashion. They were able to corner him. They were able to figure out that he did not leave the area, which they thought when he got the car, he had actually got away to get out of the place. He did not go very far. They captured in a wooded area a 4-year-old dog named Yoda, a Belgian Malinois. I'm totally butchered that. I said German Shepherd. He's not. He's a Belgian Malinois. Butchered that one there. Was able to apprehend the assailant. He basically ran after him, bit him, kept him from grabbing the rifle he had stolen to attack back, and the police came in and stopped him. Now, this turned into a whole lot of stuff. Number one, a lot of watching a guy with no shirt as they were trying to identify him with his markings. They basically, live pictures of just, all the boring stuff. Number two, the big game picture where everybody, there's like 40, 50 guys with guns in flak jackets taking a picture with the guy in the middle. It reminded me of that scene from not I'm Gonna Get You. Yeah, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. When they took a picture of the guy with the gold chains and everybody's like this posting the guy with the gold chain. That was on that one. And the fact that he was just a talker when they finally caught him. He told his plan was basically to use the gun that he had stolen to get another carjack somebody and drive away, maybe back to Peru, maybe to Puerto Rico. Obviously can't drive to Puerto Rico, but he was basically going to get a car and get out of there. He just hadn't found a way to do that. He was surviving on pond water, and he found a watermelon was eating off of. He may have stolen some granola bars out of somebody's trailer that were meant for horses, so they're really high impact on nutrition. But he was essentially doing this whole thing the whole time, and he was singing like a bird when he was caught. A 14-day serious event now over, and we will see where he will go. Obviously not the same prison. Of course, now we add on charges for trying to evade capture, which means more time for the already conviction he had going forward. We have a more or less happy ending to this one. So, from the top 10, we have produced a second podcast that is called The Story of the Week. And we take one of the top 10 stories that you guys gave us for engagement. We rearrange the order and we battle out the headlines back and forth until we get a winner and a runner up. The winner is the story we will go to in a second podcast. Look for it called The Story of the Week. Separate feed, so you won't be bothered by that in this feed. But you can see that, or if you're watching the video, see it in the same feeds that it comes down as there. It is an interesting one for this week because we, of course, had to jump on the two sort of bigger stories, the outlandish stories of the week. Our top story this week is NASA releases UFO report, says new science techniques needed to better understand them. Oh, yes, we're talking about UFOs because why the hell not? UFOs are one of the bigger stories that we have to talk about. Anytime UFOs or UAPs are brought up to any sort of conversation, no matter how out of the world of science fiction or fiction or crazy head people with tinfoil on their hats, you have a say about UFOs. You either think, oh, it's nothing, or hey, it's something there, or them people have been hiding stuff for years. And there's always, of course, moon landings being faked, things like that. NASA is essentially trying to be more transparent, but not doing it very well, not doing a good job of it. We'll talk about transparency and what may be out there. And yes, we'll talk a bit about the Mexicans throwing out, alien bodies because, they can't be outdone with this thing going on. The runner-up story, which I didn't necessarily want to go deep into, but it just turned to be one of the bigger stories that needed some sort of a push, was the Redlands Unified School District to pay $2.25 million to settle suit involving teacher who had student's baby. This is a more serious story than many people may take on to. Like I said, my 8th grade me would kind of snicker and giggle, but there's a very, very serious problem with a teacher doing this stuff, and there may be problems with the student going forward, and of course the child who has to live through this. We remember Laterno and all that nonsense that happened. I think that's been almost 30 years. What went on with that one, including the boy marrying the lady after she got out of prison and having more kids, a family. It's just sort of weird on a week where we are dissing famous people for supporting other famous people who are reporting and doing very bad things, that non-famous people doing very bad things also have to deal with the consequences. It's just sort of an odd, rough week on these type of things. So that is the story we have for this week as a runner-up. But we will be talking about in the story of the week the UFOs and NASA and them failing to give a good report that made people, think NASA's doing a good job. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back to you guys after a quick commercial stop and some promotions of us to talk about the stories not quite there. The almost ran, stories 11 through 15. Not the top stories, but still got a lot of love. And we will tell you about a story that got no love, the very bottom story at 207 this week, the almost irrelevant story of the week. This one, kind of irrelevant, so I think this one earned its position. We'll get to those in just a moment when we return. This is the weekly wrap-up presented by the Conversation Project for the week ending September 16th, 2023. So, Fundrise is the company that has helped me diversify my portfolio, and they're helping you. They can help you if you stop by our affiliate link and get in on the action. Now, when I joined Fundrise last year, 2022, their big deal was real estate. They were building into various portfolios in real estate and managing them so you could get a chance to expand your portfolio into real estate. They have expanded their portfolios into other portfolios because real estate is on the okay mark, but there's other ways to make money for you and, yes, make money for them. So a great way to get into various funds and the various industries that you never thought you could is through Fundrise. And it's as simple as anything you do for buying a stock, a bond, in any other fund. You buy shares into the fund, and those shares are for you to make money off of. They take that money for my real estate investment. They buy more real estate. They manage more properties. And the biggest thing about Fundrise is they give you very detailed and very frequent updates on what's going on. I'm still only so far in the real estate for Fundrise, and like I said, I didn't lose a dollar in my fund the full year, first year I was in for Fundrise. So it did fine with real estate being what it was last year. It still managed to do well. If you're looking for a new way to expand on your portfolio and looking to get past the guys with big fees, Fundrise may be the way to go. Check out our affiliate link at thisisaconversationproject.com/fundrise. This is theconversationproject.com/fundrise, and you can see if they are the place to place your money, place your funds. You can also go to the pro level, which allows you deeper details of how to invest in your funds, how to invest your funds into their funds. They have more ways to do your analysis, more funds to give you access to, and larger scales you can get into. If you have a little bit of money set aside that you don't know what to do with, get it out of the coffee can or under your mattress, metaphorically, and put it into Fundrise and see what it can do for you, building on your capital, building on your funds. As I said, this is an affiliate link, so if you reach out to Fundrise, we get a little bit commission back towards that. Our full listing of sponsors are at our website, so click on that link to see other sponsors that may help you. But this week, we're putting a spotlight on Fundrise, which can help you raise your portfolio and expand on your actual funds and your actual portfolios. Now, this is an investment that can lose money. That's the big thing to know. And we are not a broker. They are the broker. So you will be trusting Fundrise for your funds. I trust them. I personally have funds in Fundrise and added extra funds a few days ago because I saw a great opportunity to add to my real estate fund. Check it out for yourself and gauge it for yourself. The Conversation Project lives at thisisaconversationproject.com. And what does that mean? That means we have a website. The website is thisisaconversationproject.com. There you go. Why do we take the time here to talk about it? Because we need to explain how a lot of these things work. We don't spend a lot of time in this program explaining the full details because this is basically at the end of the week. But we have a couple of layers of things you can do to help us with the Conversation Project. The whole point of it is to have conversations to get the best news from people that people are talking about. And you help us do that. The feeds, we say, are our website links on Facebook and on X. And if you go to the X version of it, which is X is th_conversation. For Facebook, this is a Conversation Project. We post news stories every 50 minutes or so. Sometimes we get busy, sometimes we get lost, sometimes things happen. But about every 50 minutes, you'll see a new headline coming from us from a different source, various different news sources, because we want to spread it around for the different views and the different news, and sometimes some of the weirder stuff that's out there. You engage in it. If you see a story that looks interesting, we ask you to read it. We want you to tell us what you think about it. If it's X or Twitter, you just do the heart or you share it. If it's Facebook, you can hit the like, the love, the hate, whatever, share it. And the more engagement a story gets, the better chance we have of chatting it up. At the end of every single day, and for Monday, the end of the weekend, we pull up the stories and put them in a ranked order based on engagement, and we give you on our daily show, weekday show, things you might have heard, some stories that are highly engaged. From Monday, 10 stories from the top 30. The rest of the week, 8 stories top 15. You do that every single day. We pull from that. On top of that, we ask you to email us at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. That way, you can tell us what's good, what's bad, what stories you think we should have hit, and we can discuss in the email. Maybe it was a story that was top 15, but for some reason, something more salacious I pulled in for the stories. There's that. You can also find out about all of our sponsors. We just talked about the sponsors a moment ago. And if you think that we are doing fairly good work, you want to help us out in our mission, go to our partnerships page, and we are asking you to see if there's various ways you can partner up with us to get more stuff done, do more things here on the internets and around the world, if you will. If you think that we are worthy of your help, please check that out. And we thank you in advance for that one. The biggest thing you can always do, the cheap thing, the easy thing, the inexpensive thing, costs you very little, a little bit of time, is keep an eye on the feeds and share our videos and our audios and our products with other folks. And look out for various things. If you follow us on various places, you'll see that we put out little videos, little snippets of extra stuff, which are news, commentary, and some things that are just sort of informational things we pop out there. Oh, and in the we're getting long in this one, but in the daily show we have something called a second show where it's birthdays and history and things like that. So it turns it into a morning show. So we think it's fun. You tell us what you think about it, and you check it out by going to thisisaconversationproject.com. Links to all the old episodes of everything are at that website. Thank you for being a part of the family. And now we're back to the actual news. Here are the headlines that were the almost rans, the stories that were ranked number 11 through 15 based on your engagement. So they weren't top. Pretty gosh darn close, though. Starting off with number 11, and that is Oliver Anthony, Papa Roach, and Shinedown perform parking lot set at canceled Blue Ridge Rock Festival. This happened, and we posted this on Monday, so it happened prior weekend. So a festival was supposed to be held on Saturday, happening out there, but guess what? It got canceled. Severe weather happened on the weekend, so they showed up and in the parking lot played for the folks that were there. A quick acoustic set because obviously you can't set up, lots of lights and acoustic and speakers while it's storming outside. Not very dangerous. So because they're good guys, Oliver Anthony is definitely earning his respect for everyone right now. The song's still kind of bad, but him and Papa Roach did a quick little set of acoustic songs outside in the parking lot for people who were there and just couldn't get into the festival because it got rained out. Over the weekend, over the end of the last week and into the weekend, there was a widespread outage of Cash App users. So Cash App not having a great year this year, going for various places where it's no longer accepted. Me personally, my barber no longer accepts Cash App because they tend to overcharge people, double charge them, and have to fix that, and that's been an issue. Cash App was out for about 2 or 3 days or so, just in various spots, including a full outage going into Friday into Saturday. Everything was back to normal come Saturday, more or less, but there was no explanation. Also out was Square, another popular point-of-sale app, which meant a lot of cash registers running on Square could not make any transactions late Thursday through early Saturday. Big time issues for people who are unbanked and using Cash App as their alternative because it's not technically a bank. There is no guarantees of anything going in something like Cash App. But if you have nothing, it works out. We accept Cash App as part of our partnership program, so that's there as well because many people use it. It's very quick. I send money back and forth to friends and folks through Cash App. But remember, no guarantees, not a real bank. Number 13 is a story on Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee had two actual stories that were actually listed as also rans because he was a big deal this weekend. Number one is that he is going to be spending a day with Stephen A. Smith on First Take, still going forward to basically just sort of promote the new show on ESPN because he's there. That's part of it. But this is the one we went with because this is the one that really stuck home. The ratings for the new show on ESPN in the debut were down from year to year. This time last year, the shows that were on TV and the simulcast of ESPN for the Pat McAfee show in that time slot were doing better than Pat McAfee. A couple things could be there. Number one, most people that watch Pat McAfee have been watching on YouTube and they're still there. They're not turning to ESPN to watch it particularly because they already have a source of it. Number two, Pat McAfee has sort of watered down the show, if you will. Same energy, same talk, a lot less F-bombs in the process because they're on the ESPN. So maybe people tuning in are looking for that Pat McAfee and aren't finding him. Number three, the whole thing about watching talk shows on TV, it's been a thing for a decade or so because it's easy programming. But maybe, just maybe, there are people who have other things to do in watching a talk show, even Pat McAfee, especially since a lot of things that he does are sort of clip-wise and short-wise and TikTok-wise, where they're clips and bits and pieces, where in bits and pieces they're taken in because people take in all their entertainment in bits and pieces as opposed to, watching a full hour or something to get 10 minutes out of an interview. We shall see. And number 14, shooting at Little Baby concert inside Memphis FedEx Forum Arena leaves one injured. This is a story that carried over from late last week into the early part of the weekend. A story for a concert where coming into Thursday night into Friday when we posted it, a concert that had Lil Baby on stage. Also, Glorilla was there, and Glossop was in performing, happening while things were going on. Good news, only one person was injured. The bad news is the whole scene was not the best thing to have out there going forward. There were some issues with security and paramedics at the scene pretty quickly to make sure everything was fine. But for all practical purposes, another quick event that should not have happened. Did not make much on the national stage because it didn't turn into one of those exploitive type things going forward. Again, something that may have been exploitive but did not quite go that way. The headline at number 15, Martin Short receives outpouring of love from Hollywood peers after a nasty hit piece. A hit piece, if you will. An article is written about Martin Short, basically calling him a hack. We don't need him. He's horrible. When can we stop dealing with Martin Short? And then everyone in the world came out with clips on YouTube and clips on X and clips on TikTok celebrating Martin Short and his, let's call it, genius and all the things he's done. Social media was filled with posts explaining why that article that was written about him was nasty and misguided. Essentially, in fact, reigniting the posts from last week, where all of a sudden, after Jimmy Kimmel, I'm sorry, I keep seeing Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon got called out for being a nasty guy, a host on thing where Martin Short had the clip about them. Folks all over the world put out things about how much of a genius he is and how much of a great guy he is. He's 73 years old, Canadian, of course. Broadway debut back in 1981 and has done films and TV and right now starring in Only Murders in the Building. I think he is actually an EGOT winner, to be honest. He's had Emmy nominations. A Tony Award has been won. No Emmys, I guess, officially won for him. In fact, he was on the Emmys one year holding his Tony and sort of joking about that. Martin Short getting many flowers from some guy basically throwing bricks, and you can decide whether it's deserved or not deserved. Before we get to the almost relevant story of the week, I want to remind you about how you can do for us, because in all practical purposes, it's about me and the Conversation Project. So the us. Go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com. Find out all the details about all the things we do all week long, all weekend long, all the time. There we have links to all of the various forms you can find, all the various things we produce right there. Find them, share them. That's the most important thing you can do. This website, this project, has an email address called the conversation inbox at gmail.com. That's not the best way to say that, poorly worded, but that's our email address. Email us with your comments, your concerns, and yes, your bricks at us as well. We can take them. We are adults. Follow us on our feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/this it's a conversation project and Twitter.com/th_conversation. We will change that soon. We're starting getting bills from X, formerly Twitter, because I guess they have to say that. So once they officially stop using the Twitter, once they officially get off forwarding to Twitter, we'll probably change that as well. So now let's get to the almost relevant story of the week. It's a story we said it was a million times less responsive than the number one story. Headline reads, Jessa Duggar is pregnant with her fifth child. A rainbow baby is on the way. So this is a story about the Duggars in general. Jessa Duggar, who is technically she's legally Jessa Seward, one of the Duggar kids who is now having more kids. Fifth child is coming with her husband Ben. They starred in a reality show Counting On, which is sort of went through more stuff of the Duggars Keep on Counting. Now, what's going to be big about this? This came out a few days after we heard about Jill Duggar, her big sisters, have a new memoir coming out, and it's called Counting the Cost, which promises to share the unedited truth about the Duggars. I live in Arkansas, so we have a bigger, deeper detail for the Duggars. Way back in the day, before they went on TV, Jim Bob Duggar was just a real estate developer and a member of the House in Arkansas, who was this guy with a bunch of kids who sang jingles with all his kids together and had this weird story about all these kids and what went down. Then they went on TV and became a national phenomenon. And then they found out the real stories, some of the weirdness behind what's going on. And then it got really bad with what found out with the real stories, what's going on. You can read in the Counting the Cost. We'll probably bring that up again when that becomes published and comes big. And you can keep up with the Duggars if that's still your thing. Not sure why it would be, but for some, it still is. What is not anymore is the weekly wrap up for the week ending September 16th, 2023. I am Jay Cleveland Payne. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of the show. We're going to work on, as soon as we finish wrapping up the final bow on this thing, the story of the week. And of course, we're talking about NASA, we're talking about UFOs, we're talking about bad reports, which many of us have done bad reports. NASA doing a bad report, not a good thing. Make sure you find us all week long at our website or on the feeds or wherever your pods are cast, because we're all over there giving you news stories from various sources to be conversational. We're going to start working on some different branding, if you will, so you'll hear us say things a little differently, but we're going to give you news for real people, essentially. I don't think that's going to stick that way, but you people as real people help us pick the news, so you are doing the work for this. We thank you for that. Check us out as we post things all week, all night, all day, all the time on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts with various interjections of things that are light and happy and sometimes a little pointed for news stories. And remember to stay limber and stay hydrated and stay on task, because you are so important to all of us. We need you to make sure you are extending your life, not doing anything to, compress it or end it early. We're ending this one not exactly early, but we're ending this one more or less in time. Thank you for being a part of the show for Weekly Wrap Up. Be prepared for the story of the week and get ready, because come Monday, we've got things you might have heard, and that is 5:50 a.m. Central Time live on many streaming platforms. We'll see you guys next time.